Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly recap. It has been 2 weeks since I've done a weekly recap, but not a lot had happened, so I decided to skip a week. Don't blame me. It is the way it is. But now we have a bunch of new signings that are worth talking about, especially the top teams in the West. And chat, no, be cool. This is my first take. Nothing went wrong the first time. Absolutely, chat, be cool, be cool. Stop, don't move. Important news announcement in the middle of an episode, and by that I mean this information came out after I recorded all the previous stuff, but I think it's really important, so I wanted to add it into the video. So I'm just going to splice it in just like this. But what it is, you're probably aware of what it's going to be, but esports is just an @esports Twitter. It's like a news site for a lot of esports and all that type of stuff, has said that the Los Angeles Guerrillas and the Los Angeles Gladiators will be closed at the end of their respective seasons if a buyer is not found for their franchise spots. So this comes after yesterday we had a bomb dropped that the Guard, which is essentially, I would say, the parent organization of the Los Angeles Guerrillas and the Los Angeles Gladiators, they're essentially the top of it that also went into other esports titles. That went into other esports titles. They laid off every single one of their employees. The Guard laid off all of them. There's been a lot of really sad things. A lot of people have lost their jobs, but this has had a sort of ripple effect onto all of their other titles, including the Los Angeles Gladiators. So what we have to sort of say for this is the Los Angeles Gladiators, if you aren't aware, is owned by Cronky Sports and Entertainment, which is essentially, this person, Stan Kroenke. I didn't know how to pronounce his name, but we've learnt it.
Kroenke.
So Stan Kroenke is a very, very wealthy person who owns the Los Angeles Rams, the Denver Nuggets, the Colorado Avalanche, Arsenal Football Club. He has a lot of ownership in a lot of sports and entertainment. So when the Overwatch League was kicking off, he did buy into the Los Angeles Gladiators and the Los Angeles Guerrillas, created those esports teams, bought into esports in that way, and then the Guard was made after that, and that helped them expand into other titles. So this was going quite well. The Guard were one of those teams that was putting a lot of money into esports. They had great content. They had great people, honestly. They were a great growing brand. And this came out of left field for a lot of people. No one was expecting this brand to just shut off. Even employees who worked for the Guard and for these teams, Dante just moved there. They are just finding out now that they no longer have jobs. They're not being paid. And it sounds like Stan Kroenke has pulled the plug, or at least the company that he works for has pulled the plug on all of their esports endeavors and everything that they have been investing in. So we don't really know what this means for the Los Angeles Gladiators, and sort of bringing it back to our neck of the woods in the Overwatch League, what this means for the Gladiators. They will at least be playing out this season. They have player contract signs. Everything is locked in, that they're ready to go. Same with the Los Angeles Guerrillas in the CDL. But after this, how are they going to run? They said here on the tweet, and take this tweet with a grain of salt. It is a reporting thing, but I'm sure more information will come out. But it says they will be closed at the end of the season unless a respective buyer can be found for their franchise spots. The issue that we're having with the Overwatch League right now is it's pretty hard to find someone who's willing to buy into the Overwatch League. We don't know what that deal would entail. Would they be picking up the debt that the Gladiators currently have for their franchise spot? Is anyone even willing to pay and run an Overwatch League team with how little value and investment a lot of these teams have been getting? So we'll keep our eyes on the horizon for this team. Hopefully we get to see better news for this. But this could be the first step in many of, one of the Gladiators going down. But could this mean more for other teams in the future? We'll find out. But I thought I would keep you updated with that. We'll go back to the regular scheduled broadcast right now. We're going to talk about some of these players that have been signed to the Western teams, especially in the top end. There's been some very interesting signings. So let's just get started with the missing piece of the puzzle for the San Francisco Shock. They have signed Junbin to the Overwatch League. So this is another one of these rookie players. I actually don't... How old is Junbin? Does anyone know off of the top of their head? I think he's quite young. Is he? Yeah, he's 17. So this is one of those players that is only eligible because of the signing changes for 17-year-olds to be able to join the league. So a child is joining the league, but it's awesome to be able to see him come because he fills in a lot of the holes that the Shock have. Max is the off-tank player, the guy who is going to be able to play a lot of those, Sigmas, Zayas, all those types of things, while Junbin will come in, play the Wrecking Ball, play the Winston, those heroes when needed. Should give a lot of extra flexibility to the Shock, gives them 6 players, which is required for the Overwatch League. And now, they say the missing piece of the puzzle in this tweet, it makes you think that the Shock are probably done. A lot of these top-end teams have decided to go for smaller rosters rather than getting these 8 to 9 team players. When you have a backline of Finn and Vindame, who are both very strong, flexible players, you have Proper and Heesang as the DPS, you can definitely make an argument that they don't need any more players. So, will this be the last player hitting it at number 6 for the Shock with a coach like Krusty? I think it might be. So, exciting look for the Shock. I think they will be the team to beat in the West, just with the amount of firepower. But there are question marks around them with the number of rookies that they have in this roster. So, let's move on to the Houston Outlaws, because this is a team that I feel like has been underappreciated going through this offseason. They are a team that just have acquired so many great players from so many different teams. And we'll have a look at their Liquipedia in just a second, because it's, when you put it on paper and you look at it, you're like, holy cow, why are we not talking more about this team? They have added Violet to the backline. He is obviously was the last remaining member of the legacy of the San Francisco Shock. He is now an Outlaw. And let's have a look at this roster. They got Pelican Happy as the DPS line. They have Fearless as the tank, and then they have Shu and Violet as the backline. This means that Violet is probably going to be the Lucio player for the Outlaws, and I think he was fine when he played on the Shock. He's definitely not the best in the league, but his flexibility of able to going over to double flex support with Shu will be scary for other teams if you have to go up against that. They obviously have a lot of great players. Some people have quoted maybe Fearless can't play the off-tank heroes to the same level. He's always had Hanbin by his side to pick up the reins if necessary. And also Pelican and Happy, neither one of them are really a Tracer specialist player. So they only have 5 players, which is what you need by the March 13th deadline. But when the league starts, they need to have 6 players. So which additions will they make going into the future? We're not really sure just yet. I think they could go a lot of different directions. Get an off-tank, get another support, get another DPS player. There's a lot of different options, but it really comes down to what's in the market as we are getting close to the season starting. But that is the Outlaws with another great addition to their roster, and they are just stacked overall, especially with a great coach in Junbin, who has been their head coach, a very smart person, worked with the Shock when they were very successful. So Outlaws are the team that I think a lot of people are going to keep their eyes on, definitely fighting for that top spot against the San Francisco Shock. Now, talking about another team that's going to be fighting for the top, and the Atlanta Reign have made another addition, and this is one that I don't think many of us were, I guess, anticipating for the Atlanta Reign. So they have acquired Donghak. So Donghak is a main tank player. A lot of people have said, I don't know personally too much about him as a player, but he was on Talon, and then he was on Team 815. People have said he's kind of like a Wrecking Ball player, Wrecking Ball Winston. I would assume this is to sort of offset the issue that Hawk might not be as adept at those heroes. He showed a lot of flexibility last year for the Reign, but if they are really trying to be the best, having a main tank option in their back pocket will be a good thing for them. So let's look at their roster as a whole. So now they have a lot of Korean players, which raises more questions around the idea of having Gator as a head coach, Hawk as the tank. Will we see them move away from Hawk just for simplicity's sake of having everyone be Korean on the roster? So for DPS, they have Stalker and Lip. They got Vigilante Fielder Chio as backline. I don't think you can have any complaints about that lineup. I think they're very strong. They're very flexible. But with that extra addition of Donghak, that sort of fills in that hole of the main tank roles. But my fear for Hawk might be that he might be on the back burner, especially if we go into a dive meta early on where they have to play Winston and Wrecking Ball, because Donghak will definitely be that player for them. So exciting things for Atlanta Reign. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. On paper, they are a very good team. We have questions around how it's going to mesh, how it's going to gel. So a lot of different pieces coming from different places, but I think they are by no means are going to struggle with mechanics. So, let's talk about the Gladiators, because this is a team that I think a lot of people are down on compared to previous seasons, but they have made a couple of signings as of late. So, the rumors are true. They did sign Yaki to the Los Angeles Gladiators. Yaki has been, according to Avast, a top 5 DPS player. I don't know if I truly agree with that, but he is a nasty player. On the Tracer, on the Genji, he just has a very aggressive style, and it's been good for him when he was on the Florida Mayhem, when he went to the New York Excelsior. He's always been a good player. It's just been he hasn't had a good team around him. Now he has the Gladiators around him. He has good players. He has a good team. Is he going to be able to pull off what we're all hoping he can? This does raise the issue that the Gladiators have Custa and Yaki, both players who like to play Tracer, like to play Genji, right? Like they have a very similar hero pool and they don't have a hard hit scan player. So is Custa going to sort of change his role a little bit, go more towards the hit scan? We know he's a good enough player to do that, but can he do that at the level that the team is going to need? And does he want to do that, right? He is known for his Tracer. He is known for these other heroes. Yes, he can play Sojin, but should he play Sojin is really the question. Some of us have speculated and it's been rumored and it's gone back and forth that maybe Kai would pick up that third DPS slot for the Los Angeles Gladiators, but we're not really going to have any answers to that until they announce more. They have a pretty big roster at this point. Let me pull up the Wikipedia for you. They have Custa, Funny Astro, Lastro, Dante, Yaki, and Babel, right? So I guess let's talk about that before we go on. Babel was signed for, I think it's Babel. I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but they have also signed Babel. He is a flex support player. He played for the 2020 London Spitfire, I think it was. I think it was 2020 when he joined. He was a part of that nightmare and didn't really find a lot of success. As did a lot of players on that team, but he has gone back to contenders. People have said he's improved a lot, and I think it will be exciting to see him play. He is going to be that double flex support player, so Lastro will be the primary flex support, I would say. Funny Astro will be the Lucio player, and then Babel will come in for that double flex if ever needed. So filling out the roster, they still only have Dante as a tank, and then we have the Custa and Yaki DPS duo. I think I would have a lot more confidence in this roster if they signed a Kai or a hit scan specialist type of player. That would give them a lot more well-roundedness moving into the future. But we'll see. Only time will tell if they'll sign more players. I don't know if they've said anything like, oh, this is the last piece of the puzzle. Like, yeah, they're just sort of talking about how their roster is getting stronger. And we know that Gladiators have money and they've always been willing to spend. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did go up to, what would that be? A 7-man roster, potentially 8-man roster in the future. So the coaching staff has also remained the same as far as I am aware. So moving onwards, the Toronto Defiant have made a couple of additions here, not in terms of players, but in terms of coaches. So they have added Wheat, who is a contenders coach who was a part of the American Tornado squad and has worked closely with a lot of the people from American Tornado and that contender scene in the past. So, a lot of connection there, a lot of synergy. It makes sense why Wheats has been signed. They also signed No Hill to be the coach for the team. No Hill coming off of a rocky season with the Los Angeles Valiant. There's been a lot of back and forth of No Hill being a genius, kind of a mad scientist almost. What will his influence be like on this Toronto Defiant team? Because honestly, we haven't really seen him compete with a Western roster. He doesn't really have a lot of ties to Toronto Defiant and the players, so only time will tell. So that's the Toronto Defiant additions right there in the coaches. The players are still remaining the same. We do have the questions of whether or not they're going to sign a main tank, but for right now, the roster has stayed the same for Toronto. I want to transition this into an interesting thing that happened recently. No Hill, with the signing to the Toronto Defiant, came out on stream, spoke out a little bit more against the Los Angeles Valiant and LGE, which is the Chinese team that was running the Los Angeles Valiant in 2022. He made a lot of statements saying that players weren't paid. He wasn't paid. LGE was telling them not to win games because it was going to cost LGE as a whole money. We all know that the whole situation is just fucked and that everything around it just sounds super sus and super problematic. But I would take all this stuff with a grain of salt. This is a translation of a no-hill stream, so everything that is said is, not always factual. So it's worth looking at. It sort of just talks about people not being paid, LG really struggling, no-hill not being able to accomplish anything, and eventually leaving because of those reasons. So it sucks. I hope this brings more attention to what is happening at the Valiant and LGE, and the league should really be stepping in and making sure people are getting paid. People sign contracts for a reason, so that it's legally binding and people are required to get paid what they deserve for working. I don't know what's going on with LG asking teams not to win. That is also a big problem in my eyes of competitive nature of the league. But yeah, as I said, take this with a grain of salt because we don't have any true factual answers or points or anything like that. So just keep it on your radar. And I thought it was worth bringing up with everything that's going on. So the last thing is roster construction rules. I wanted to highlight March 13th is the deadline for teams to have a minimum of 5 players because there are a few teams right now that don't have 5 players. They don't have any players at this point. I think, who are the usual suspects we got, chat? We got the Washington Justice, as much as they've been rumored, haven't signed a player. The Los Angeles Valiant, they who will not be named, have also not signed any players. New York Excelsior, there's been a lot of rumors, but nothing has come from that. And then those are the 3 Western teams that I don't think have done anything just yet. And then in the East, we have Seoul Infernal, who only have 2 players. They retained MN3 and Zest, but we haven't seen anything else from them. We have the Seoul Dynasty, who have 1 player in Profit. We have the Shanghai Dragons, who have no players. So Chengdu Hunters, we don't know what's going on with them. Guangzhou has a team. Hangzhou Spark, we don't really know what's going on with them. Hopefully we start to get some answers because that's not that far away. How many days is that? That's like 20 days away until we hit the deadline of teams need to start announcing. So there should be a lot of stuff coming out in the near future about at least what's happening in the APAC region, because even though they're not competing in the Pro-Am, I think they need to at least have teams available. And that is going to be the weekly recap. Bi-weekly recap? I don't know. I don't really know. No, fortnightly recap. Whatever. We had some good stuff to talk about, so I hope that informed you a little bit, gave you some context of what is going on. I am going to be starting to do some team previews. I actually have one recorded about Toronto Defiant that will be coming out probably the day after this video is aired. So keep an eye out for those because I'm going to start doing them at least in the Western teams that feel like they've rounded out their roster and they finally stopped building. And we can start ramping up because the league starts and the Pro-Am starts in about a month. So we're getting ready. We're getting hyped up for everything that is to come for this upcoming year. Make sure to keep an eye out for those and enjoy. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already so that you can see all these. And then all the spicy power rankings will be starting soon. I'm going to do them on my channel, but also Plat Chat. So keep an eye out for those. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this off season. The dark days are almost ended. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel for the new season. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. And I'll see you guys next time.